Hello, mate. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, so we're here today in the Life's a Pitch studio to talk about Beyond the Uniform. So how's your day gone so far?
It's gone very well. I've been looking forward to doing this because it's a cause very close to my heart. And Beyond the Uniform's obviously something that resonates with me in terms of football more than actually military, because then you come out of football and there's not a lot of sort of signposts and help and all this sort of thing when I've retired from football, and you need help along the way. Now there's a lot more. It's like all the licenses for the Football Association, all the different agents and all these kind of things as well. So your career path now, if you were to finish now, is a lot better than what it was. And obviously with Beyond the Uniform and with the veterans coming into civvy life, there are a lot more signposts, but we're here because we want more.
Exactly. And we're here to announce, and I'm very humbled to announce this, that you've agreed to be the patron for Combat to Coffee. So thank you very much, mate.
No, it's a real honour. I mean, we got to know each other normal methods, I suppose, not by introduction at parties or anything else, or balls or galas, but through the internet, really.
There's a couple of reasons why it's fantastic for the organisation, if I'm totally honest with you. One, I'm going to mention football. I'm an Ipswich lad, born and bred, come from Chantry, so for me that's an honour in its own respect. But two, you get what probably I've been through, my family have been through, and so on. And I think, look, let's be honest. You've got a massive footprint. You have a voice that people listen to, and I think you can also be a voice because of your own personal journey with the message we're trying to get out there. So to be that patron is phenomenal. What do you think about that then?
Well, I feel very honoured. I feel very humble. My son would have loved it, in all honesty, if he was still here. Yeah, I mean, my son, like I say, would have been proud that I'm going down this route now of patron Combat to Coffee, and trying to help, from a veteran's point of view to the families and to the veterans themselves. But he wanted to do something, and he always said to me, he says, "Dad, if I do pass away or if I do die or all these kind of things," and he obviously, when you're looking at suicides and things like this, he did try as well. So that was really tough. When someone does that. So he said, if it does happen, then please don't blame the military. That was one of his wishes, and that really resonated with me. And I'm thinking, well, that's the first thing I want to do is blame the military. But there's no point going down that route. You've got to say, right, it is what it is. How can we improve it now? How can we get help, to the families and help to the veterans? So from one area or another, as long as we can do that. And I think that's what we want to strive very, very hard to do.
And Beyond the Uniform is about literally opportunities for those who may need help outside of not only football but military life. And there's too many suicides in the country anyway, but military suicide, it's on the same level, but it's not acceptable. And I think if I remember the start of COVID, the first 3 months, there was 79, which is just 79 too many. And if veterans could feel, and serving people, because I do know someone serving, that actually they can speak out. It's safe to speak out. You're not judged. That's the really important thing with all of this. And for you to be our patron and spread that message, not only for the families, but also to create I'm going to be honest, a legacy for Chris as well, because that's really important. And you know what? So what you're doing isn't in vain. We're doing it because we want to educate others, and we want others to say, do you know what? Times can be hard, but I am going to get some help.
But it's a real honour when we, as soon as we started talking, and we've had some adventures already together, and I've been down the roastery and made some coffee, which is good for me. I feel really proud about that. It was just one cup, but I feel really proud about it. But it does. I mean, for you to ask me was I felt really humble. I really did.
And genuinely, because you said, like, you made a coffee. It's about that. Sometimes people coming to see what we do, and we've probably not shouted about that enough. Coming down to the roastery, see what we do. You made a quite a good cappuccino. I have asked you a couple of times to make some more, but you've denied that one.
Well, you should really stop when you've done a good job. So that's it, yeah.
That's quite appropriate, actually. And we went, like you say, adventures. We went to Army headquarters. We had a talk. We took the coffee van down there. We done some coffee for quite high-ranking military officials, and there's a reason why. I think everyone knows publicly why I do come back to coffee. I'm very honest that I struggle with my mental health from armed forces and my career. Something happened during my career, and what I realised several years later when I was going through my recovery and my journey, that my family struggled, and I think that's where we've linked in, because you've been through stuff as a family member of someone armed forces as well, Terry, and you can go on to what you want and mention what you want, but that's the reason why you're doing this, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've followed the same path as my son, or my son followed the same path as you, but there's a lot of veterans that have come out now that have troubles. With the PTSD, it is such a horrible thing. It really is when it happens, and you don't know when it's going to happen. It can happen 2-3 years after coming back, and that's what happened to my son. I don't know what happened to you, but my son, it obviously manifested itself, and it was horrible. It was like another person. My son sort of turned into that sort of different figure, different reactions and different actions, and it was really, really difficult to deal with it. How did you find it?
Well, I came back from I left the military. That was some 12 years after I left the military that my PTSD started to come to fruition. And I think it's important just to try and share some of the things that was going on with me. I think the key's in the title, post. You can't change post. That's the biggest thing. You just got to learn to grow and manage with it and work with it. I still have wobbles now, but some of my people used to see me as an angry person. They'd see me in conversation getting quite angry, but that wasn't, until I got some help, it wasn't anger. It's anxiety. They both display the similar behaviours, and that was terrible for me. And I'm trying to explain to people I'm not angry, and they're going, well, you got to calm down. Well, I can't calm down because that causes anxiety to get worse. The other thing as well, going out, always sit where you can see the door. We've laughed about that. Yeah. It's the hypervigilance is through the roof, and when you're having a bad day, your sensitivity is it's a little bit spider senses. I don't know if the words, but everything, you're on edge all the time, and any noise or any reaction you're turning. I think emotions are quite an important part. Physical emotion, there's times where I can sit there and I'll be watching something random, but I'll get very overwhelmed, and that's very hard when I'm in a public place and people see me now as this ambassador for veterans and mental health, but I can get very emotional, and then I try and hide it, but that becomes even worse, because once you hide a tear, they run even further. And I know I smile about it, but I think it's important to get those symptoms out. But the PTSD thing, people need to get help for it. If you're anyone who's struggling with mental health, you need to get help. And I think we just got to allow people to speak to us or speak to what organisations they feel comfortable with and get some help. That's the real important thing. If we can be a voice not only for veterans, for families and for serving people, that there is help out there, why wouldn't we do it? For me, it's a no-brainer.
And we can also point them in the right direction as well, because on the website you have all the list of people that are linked to Combat to Coffee. You're all linked together, and that's a way forward, a really positive way forward, and that's what veterans can come and do. We haven't got the facilities where we can actually say we're going to cure you. That would be an ideal world, that you would do that. But we can point them in different directions to say, try this. Because, back in the day, a good number of years ago, there weren't that many options, if any options at all. No, and now there's a lot more. So there's hope on the mental health side. And now we want to say, right, what do the families get? How do the families? That's what we've got to, we've got to lobby for more help and more action. That's in that department that's needed urgently. There's
a great organisation called the Ripple Pond, and there's another one called Scotty's Little Soldiers, and they're supporting young people who have passed away where they've been serving. And the Ripple Pond, I met them when I was getting therapy at the charity I was at, and what they do for families is amazing. At the time I was married, and they offered support to my wife because they were founded by someone who'd been through, her husband had been through trauma from military, and she wanted to give something back. And I think what we could be, Terry, is that I want to be that voice for veterans about getting help. And I think working with yourself coinciding that with the families, I think we really could put something out there to make sure that people feel safe that they can get help. As you said, we don't fix, but we can lead the veterans or the family members to different organisations that do fix. And if we can do that prominently through coffee, then I think we're doing a good thing. Takes away some of the anxiety from them. If they know that that person's getting some help, just laying at your home at night, I know from my mother's point of view, she would have probably not worried so much at night, what's Nigel doing? Because I wasn't getting help at the time. And I think if that person can be brave enough to get some help, that will just support the family. So for anything, I think what I know now, I wish I'd have got help earlier, because that would have helped my children, as I said, that would have helped my extended family. And I think that's the real important. And it's not embarrassing to get help. I think actually it takes a stronger person to say, do you know what, I need some help.
And with all the new help that's out there, and that's growing as well, it's very impressive. And I only wish that my son had that when he was alive. So it's sad, obviously, for us, because he's passed away, but at the same time, it gives me hope that veterans that are suffering, and the families as well, which is, we want to hammer that point home even more, are now going to benefit.
We've won some funding to do some work with Suffolk Mind called Frontline Families, which is about the serving people, because I feel that there's no education to serving people about mental, physical health and the journey, what could be in front of them. So if we can get in there early doors and educate that you may struggle, that will become permanent, and then hopefully when someone does, they'll reach out. I think that's really important. So this Frontline Families is about engaging with the wives, husbands, the kids, and actually giving them the power to say to mum or dad who's serving, Dad, I know things may be hard, I want you to get some help.
And Call Back to Coffee is very good, because you introduce people, you just have a brew, you have a cup of coffee or a cup of hot chocolate or wherever you want, and you start talking to people, and then obviously talking to a lot of military-based people as well, which helps, and it puts you at ease as a veteran. My son came out and he really, really did struggle from a mental health point of view. There wasn't any help out there, any assistance for him. And there's only certain routes then that the military veterans can go on to, in terms of drugs, in terms of alcohol and depression, hunkering themselves away, avoiding contacts, and just disassociating themselves with life in general. And they're the people we want to reach. But also as well, the families, like your family, suffered a lot. My family suffered enormously. We had to look after our son, and the mental health pressure on us, and all the kind of pressures that you would expect looking after someone who's deeply troubled. It's something that you'll never forget, but it's something that you want to help people with, families especially, but also the veterans. But that's our aim, I think.
And I think you've hit the point there, definitely with the families. Like when I struggle, I still have moments now where I have wobbles, but it's my kids, my mother, my brother, they're the ones who worry about me, and they pick up the anxiety from me, and they do everything they can to support it. And I think what we don't realise, the families didn't join the military. I joined the military, but what was ingrained in me in basic training, unfortunately, when you leave, standards and values, very similar to football, you have standards and values in football, I'd imagine. But when we leave, we still hold on to them and never forget them. So when I do struggle, in my mind, it's like, got to keep going. But that's the families are the ones who pick up the pieces, and that's where we really, really need to get that message out there and get people above us, get people who are in positions of responsibility in the country to sort of say, yeah, there's stuff going on for veterans, and we know that, but actually what's being done for families at the moment?
There might be current theatres of war or action breaking out all over the globe, because there's so much uncertainty in the world now that you need your military, but also, if there are going to be theatres of war or action, then you and people are coming back. You need help for these people even more so. So it doesn't manifest itself, PTSD, maybe for a couple of years, 2-3 years. So and all of a sudden you're hit by it, and it just devastates everybody. So we've got to be prepared even more for that. But with the families in particular, they've got to know what's going to happen. They've got to know how to cope with it, or what they can do, or who they can turn to. And if they have that, then they can approach that situation with a lot more confidence than families in the past have done.
I just want to talk about the Office of Veterans Affairs. It's a department that's set up under one of the former Prime Ministers, and then that was cancelled when there was another Prime Minister come on board, and then the current Prime Minister reinstated the Office of Veterans Affairs, which has done lots for veterans in the community. My biggest fear is that we're going through this whole election campaign. We've had things start called Op Courage, which is all about the mental health, but it doesn't just do mental health. It helps veterans with housing, finance, benefit and debt, health. It does lots and lots of stuff. We've had Op Fortitude, which is the homelessness project. We've got Op Restore. I was very privileged. I got invited to Op Prosper, which is about employing of veterans. Where does this go? Does this continue? Because quite easily we've got this department, and then in a month's time that could disappear, and then all the good which is happening goes back to square one. What's your view on that? Where do you think it should continue to grow, and where do you think we could continue to grow to reinforce that message that needs to stay?
Well, I mean, at the very least, it should be untouched. It should be just put in on sort of storage, and then making sure that it's switched on again when the new government comes in. I think it's something that shouldn't be touched. I think it's something that is sacrosanct. All the other policies and everything else like that, yes, they can say this and say that and do this and do that, but I think that's the baseline for going forward for this new government, and then there's got to be additions to that as well. I mean, it's you're not asking for the world, but you're asking for a little bit more, more attention, more help, so that it can give the families especially much more of a lifeline to cling on to, because it is, you feel as a family, you feel that you're just being cast adrift. You really do. You're on your own. Help yourself and all that sort of thing. You've got to find your own life jackets and all that. So we all needed help. We all need help now. All the family. So what has been done is absolutely fantastic compared to what it was 7, 8, 9 years ago. So there's good progress, but we still want more, and we still want more from a baseline that it is now. The army is, when the vets leave, as you know, there's no signpost, there's no sort of guidance. They go to Cyprus and have a couple of weeks trying to, what do they call it? Decompress. And then they're released, sort of thing, and it's a scary world. It really is.
And I think that military, when you give your ID card in, that's the what next, because you lose a bit of identity, and that's the really important thing. And I know the government have brought out the Veterans ID card, which hopefully will bring that identity back to some people, but it's the taking away that MOD Form 90 is called, with your face and your service number on. You lose an identity, and I think probably when footballers retire, certain footballers will lose their identity, and that's when they struggle.
I mean, I find that even in football, what do I do now? What are my strengths? And the strengths, my strength was as a footballer. Your strength is in the military, and at the end of the day, well, what relevance does that have on modern society? Not a lot. It's a very niche marketplace, or workplace. So you've got to learn new skills, and you've got to help and find out for things yourself, but also help other people in the process, which is what we're trying to do now.
And we've got some exciting things really coming up. We've got some exciting things, I think, for Armed Forces Week, which announcing that you're our patron. We're going to do some stuff in regards to the Armed Forces Covenant. I think Remembrance is going to be a time where we can grow medals to matches, which was a good day last year, wasn't it?
Excellent day. I really enjoyed that, and it was a lot of veterans came together, and we walked down to Portman Road and went into the stand and all that together as well. It was really, really nice and touching, and my son would have really enjoyed that, Chris, and he liked going to watch Ipswich Town anyway, but especially in the company of veterans, and they've been there and done it, and you can relate to very, very closely. Brothers in arms. It was a real treat. It really was. We're going to do lots of things together.
Yeah, lots of exciting things.
I want to do lots of stuff. Get involved with the families. We've been to the breakfast. You have the breakfast clubs, which are really good. It's really good. You see people there that but obviously with football they want to come over and talk to me a little bit, and then when they find out my son was in the military and where was he with, the conversation starts, and then it goes on. Then I would go on to them about how he suffered and what happened, and then a lot of people say, well, I had that, and I know somebody, and everybody seems to know a veteran that has suffered.
Yeah.
And that's the saddest thing, but also we can help them now. We can help the families, especially. They're the most important people in many respects, looking after the veterans.
If we can continue to grow that, grow the outreach, grow the support, then more people are going to get help, and it's a no-brainer to me. And if we can do it through coffee, why wouldn't we do it?
Well, I mean, that's it. That's our incentive, and our goal really is to do that. And we have, it's always nice to score a lot of goals in football, but there's a lot of goals that can be achieved in the military life as well, and ex-servicemen. So, that's you want to sort of, it runs sort of side by side, the military and sport, and particularly football. So it's a team game. So therefore, the team has got to help individuals all the way around, and it can grow and grow. And I think as long as we can be responsible for putting the platform out there for people to do that, and that's where the new government will come in, then and we'll keep banging on about it, because it can be done easily and it can be improved quite easily as well. So once that's improved and once that help comes, then the families will help themselves through that sort of process.
So Terry, what would you say to any veterans' families out there in the community now?
Well, to get help as quickly as possible. You're not on your own. There's lots of people out there, lots of families suffering and going through the same as what you're doing. The more you can talk to people, the more you can educate yourselves and other people into what to do, then the veteran will certainly be very thankful and will get help, the right help. But it is difficult. It's so hard because families see this situation, it presents itself to them. What do? They've got to get help. Combat to Coffee is on its website, as you know, has a list and a link of really good companies and charities that can now help. It wasn't there before, but now it is. And if the government can, the new government can continue its work and improve the facilities and the education as well, then families can come out the other end. It's not going to sort of revolving door all the time. You're not getting forward and you're not gaining ground. You do gain ground by seeking help, and education is the right way. And it takes time, but it's well worth it.
And I think from a veteran point of view, if there's any veterans out there as well who feel, could they speak out, could they get help, do it. It's the best thing you can do for your family. And I didn't realise that till, as I said earlier on, many years later. And basically from that, helping myself helped my kids. They're the ones who are really important to me, and knowing that my recovery is going to aid them to grow up and lead as normal life as possible, not worrying about dad, is really important. So if there's any veterans out there struggling, if you've got kids, or for your family, just get help. It's easy to do.
It is. And also as well, people say, this with the veterans, and they're struggling and they turn to different sort of self-medications and all this sort of thing. It's a choice. They've made a choice. Well, they haven't made a choice. They make no choice about PTSD coming on board. They don't have any choice in that matter whatsoever. It happens. So therefore, you've got to deal with it. The choices that they do have is to get help and be very forceful in doing that, because there is a route out. There is a way out, and it's not because the veterans are so worried and they hate saying, well, they're what's wrong with them and all the symptoms and going through it all the time. But if you can get the right help and get the right education, with Combat to Coffee, with all the list of the people that can help, then certainly they can get help quicker.
And you just hit a point there with me. I didn't choose to get PTSD, and I've sat there with my daughter in Marks and Spencer's, I will mention it, getting really upset one day and crying my eyes out and say, why have I got PTSD? And my daughter was 17 at the time, and something had happened. There'd been a trigger in the town centre. But that's the reason why I got help, because I could say, why have I got it? But actually, by saying that, it's a part of recovery. It's not
really the right question, saying, why have I got it?
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
You just get it. Why have I got flu? You just get it. But, PTSD is a lot worse than flu. So, once it happens, or once it's presented itself, then The choice is, what do I do now? That's the choice. And there's far, far more help now, and we can help these people get help as well with the families, because we've been through it. We know what to do and who to contact a lot more now as well. So, there is hope. There is great hope, but we want to give them even more hope by doing the right things and, rattling on doors and lobbying and all these kind of things as well to the right people, because, it does matter. It matters to veterans and it matters to the families to get their loved one right, but also get the family back to some form of normality as well.
And that's the really important thing. As I've said before, families indirectly didn't join the military, but they suffer because of the military. And actually, if that veteran or that servant person can get that help, there's a way of leading a normal life later down during that recovery stage. And I think that's really important.
It certainly is, yeah.
Yep.